Here's a perspective from Eric Trump. For the Trump brand name, when we build, we want only the best buildings in the world. We travel a lot to see real estate projects worldwide, and we always study what can be done better. There's no question about it, a Trump Tower has to have the very best quality, amenities, and facilities. People want that ultra-luxurious lifestyle. As any good real estate investor knows, the amount of money you forked over to gain a property could be entirely different from what that said property is actually worth. You may have purchased a home at a foreclosure, or a short sale after all, and managed to get a real bargain. This is good news for your pocketbook, but it creates a challenge when it comes to ascertaining how much your acquisition is actually worth. In the simplest of terms, a property is worth whatever someone is willing to pay for it. You may be in a mortgage for a $200,000 house, for example. When someone comes along and informs you that a major corporation absolutely must buy up your house and every other house on your street in order to build a shopping mall. If the developer is serious enough, your $200,000 house might be purchased for millions of dollars, just so some developer somewhere will be able to tear it down to make room for a shopping mall parking lot. Obviously, this is a rare hypothetical situation, but it just goes to show you that worth truly is in the eye of the beholder. This is true in the more everyday sense as well, considering the fact that a fresh set of paint and a little trim can add thousands of dollars of value to a home. That's why real estate investors always keep in mind a little something called the ARV of a property. Taking your property's ARV into account. Let's say you purchase a house on the cheap for just $50,000. The house needs a lot of work done, however, and you do it. After all the necessary repairs have been done, the value of the home could be double or even triple what you initially forked out to pay for it. Remember how the previous chapter mentioned that some basic math might be involved in real estate? Well, for an investor, the ARV boils down to one very simple formula: ARV equals property's current value plus value of repairs. But before you can figure out the ARV, you first need to appraise the property's current as-is value. The best way to figure this out is to hire a professional appraiser. An appraiser will walk through your home and use a specialized set of criteria to determine just how much the property is worth. This determination is official, so it will give you a solid baseline on which you can add the value of all of your future repairs in order to come up with the estimated ARV. Just take the current value given to you by the appraiser and add the total value of the repairs you plan to do, and you will know how much your property is really worth. After your house has undergone an appraisal, you would do yourself a world of good by creating something called a listing sheet. The listing sheet is a form you can use to list all of the repairs and upgrades that might be needed, and how much you might expect to pay for them. This is a solid overview of where your money for upgrades will ultimately be funneled into. Your listing sheet could make mention of things such as potential water damage, issues with structural foundation, septic system problems, plumbing problems, faulty, broken appliances, windows that need replaced. So just to reiterate all this once again, in order to ascertain the total value of your property before any work is done, get an as-is appraisal. Once your appraisal has been carried out, you can then go around your property with a listing sheet and list every single item that needs to be repaired or upgraded. This will help you to better calculate the cost of your repairs. All of these things will then be plugged into the ARV formula of ARV equals property's current value plus value of repairs. It can actually be pretty thrilling to see all of the modifications and upgrades you've made, increasing the worth of your property in real time. This is the best way to know what your property is really worth, and this simple formula can be executed just as described. If, however, you don't feel like doing the math, there are many online valuation tools that could be used as well. Sites such as Zillow, Redfin, and Trulia all have online tools at the ready in which you can just plug in the numbers and go from there. It's absolutely crucial that you know what your property is worth. And besides doing the basic math, here are a few additional tips and tricks as it pertains to ascertaining the real-world value of one of your potential real estate investments. Make sure you get an appraisal. Yes, we already mentioned that an appraisal is beneficial when ascertaining a property's value, but it's worth stressing again. For as soon as you sign that dotted line, your lending company should have the property properly appraised. The lending institution typically does this out of its own pocket, and they do it just as much to protect themselves as it is to protect you. Indeed, from the perspective of a lending institution, the appraisal is a means to gauge how much of a loss the lender might sustain if you suddenly bailed on them and the house goes into foreclosure. It's only natural for a lender to consider these worst-case scenarios ahead of time. They have to consider the risks involved and plan accordingly. Having that said, the appraisal itself can be a major determining factor, since if the lender deems that the value is too low for them to properly recoup their losses, should you default on their loan, they may back out of the whole thing altogether. Take stock of the expected appreciation rate. You may have heard it said before that when it comes to real estate, it's either a buyer's market or a seller's market. A buyer's market, of course, refers to a real estate market in which affordable properties are easy to find. In fact, many properties may be listed way under their actual market value. But if it's a seller's market, on the other hand, the odds are more in favor of a would-be seller, with properties that are in demand and high-priced. Two factors that can potentially bring in quite a bit of profit for a real estate investor. The reason behind these great two variations is a little thing called appreciation. Having that said, the number one boost to property appreciation is the classic law of supply and demand. Quite simply, if everyone wants something, but there isn't enough of that something to go around, the value of that item shoots up. The value appreciates to the point that only those willing to fork out the most money are able to obtain it. Just consider precious, rare metals such as gold. Have you ever wondered why gold is so valuable? Sure, it looks nice, but the real reason this rare metal is valuable is because it's rare. On the other hand, if gold was as common as dirt, and we can find it just by poking around in our backyard, it wouldn't be worth so much. It's the same with property. If you have in your possession a nice single-family home on a side of town that everyone wants to live, yet with very little vacancies, the property will be in high demand as soon as you put it on the market. Everybody wants to live there, but local properties like yours are rare, therefore, you have yourself a valuable commodity. Another reason that appreciation might skyrocket in a seller's market is inflation. An economy flush with cash can quickly become inflated, and thereby decrease the monetary value of money itself. In the aftermath of the pandemic of the early 2020s, for example, it was common practice to issue stimulus checks in an attempt to jumpstart the economy. This risks the danger of inflation, however, because once again, according to the supply of demand, the more you have of something, the inherently less valuable it becomes. The more money the Federal Reserve prints out, the less buying power the dollar has. You could possibly print out enough money to give every citizen a check for $100,000, but the next thing you know, a single loaf of bread costs $1 billion. Money is just about worthless if the price of everything is so inflated, you can't buy anything with it. So yes, the value of a property just might go up due to inflation, but you would be hard-pressed to find any benefit therein. Interest rates also have a direct impact on the appreciation of property. If the loans borrowers take out from lenders is subjected to a higher interest rate, this affects supply and demand, since less people will be willing to borrow at that higher rate. This creates less of a demand on property, since not as many people are applying to take out loans with lenders. At the same time, if interest rates go down, more will be willing to apply, and therefore the demand for property will go up, driving up the overall appreciation rate of property. The value of a for sale by owner is in the eye of the beholder. A for sale by owner property can really turn into a mixed bag. In some cases, you might be able to get an for sale by owner which is listed way under its market value, but in other cases, an owner might be trying to sell their property at a ridiculously high price. For an owner, especially one who might place sentimental value on the property, for them, value just might be a figure that only makes sense in the eye of the beholder. For in their eyes, their backyard pond may seem like a relaxing place to fish on a summer's day, but to you it might seem like a filthy swamp that attracts all manner of bugs and vermin that will ultimately drag the value of the property down, not to mention, become an occupational hazard. Having that said, don't allow a sentimental for sale by owner to easily sweet-talk you into an unrealistic price range. Be firm from the very beginning as to what you consider the true value of the property and what your ultimate asking price will be. Take a gander at similar sellers on the market. Another way to gauge real-world value of a property is to take a look at similar properties already being sold on the market. All houses are different, but there is a general framework of valuation at work. Find properties with similar traits, such as similar age, structure, space, and land area. You can go to any local real estate agent and pull up valuable data on these comparable properties. With this bit of intel, just create a basic, ballpark average of their going rate, and you will have a good reference point as to what a similar property should be worth.